As ice raids become more frequent and more intense across the country, it can feel as if the Trump administration's deportation plans are working as intended. In truth, the United States government is coming up against a very different reality. Manpower shortages, ballooning costs, overfull detention centers, backlogs at the courts, and public outrage all threaten to derail the mass deportation scheme. Today, on the Politics of New America, ICE comes up against reality as it struggles with the logistics of mass removals. We look at the Trump administration's costly plan to supercharge the agency and turn ICE into a force capable of deporting millions. I'm your host, Nathan Stone, and with me today is special guest producer Deidre Stone. Producer Josh is away this week. Last I saw, he was hitching a ride to D.C. while wearing only an American flag, tastefully cut into the shape of a fig leaf. Hopefully he has a great time. Dee has kindly agreed to take his place for this week. And I called you Producer D because we've always had Josh as Producer Josh here. And so I thought I would give you the same title, but if you'd like a different title, you can have one.
I like the power that gives me. Now, I don't know if I can fill Josh's shoes or his fig leaf in this case, but I'm here to do my best as our semi-emergency stand-in, so.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Now, full disclosure here, folks, you may have guessed by the sharing of the last name, Dee is my spouse, and she has volunteered to make me...
I was easy to get on this. I was available.
It makes me sound less crazy if I'm not talking to myself about American politics, so I do appreciate it.
Most of my credentials for this is I've spent a long time listening to Nathan explain complicated things that I'm not familiar with, particularly around history and politics. So hopefully that's enough to qualify me.
But you are also a business analyst, and we're going to talk some numbers here, so I think you are qualified to...
I do like numbers.
Well, you might not like these ones, but we'll see.
Probably won't.
But yeah, let's jump into it. Today we've got kind of a medley of things to talk about. Usually we like to focus in on one specific policy area, and we are going to kind of do that, but I want to jump around a little bit too, because the narrative that I want to weave today is that ICE as an organization has a lot of issues that they're running up against. However, the administration is really looking to supercharge, as I said in the intro, the agency and make things smoother for them so that they can actually accomplish this wild deportation feat that they want to do.
Deport more people faster.
That's it. That is exactly it. So we're going to open things up all the way back, cast your mind back to January 20th of this year, Trump's first day in office. And on that day, he went through a signing spree on executive orders. We love executive orders on this show, mostly talking about them, not so much the contents. So we're going to start off by talking about protecting the American people against invasion.
Oh boy.
Yeah. The Trump administration, as far as executive orders go, they're all movie titles almost. If you go back to like the Clinton era or even Bush 1 or Bush 2, the executive orders sound a lot more boring than they do nowadays.
Well, like that's what I would expect out of the title of an executive order, is like something that's just kind of practical and factual, like not something that a seasoned propagandist is going to look at and be like, "Really? Really?"
A bit on the nose, guys.
Huh.
Yeah. This executive order did a whole bunch of things. But amongst those things, what I want to talk about today is expedited removal. Now, this is an immigration tactic. It gets around a lot of that pesky due process that you should give people when they arrive.
Those darn rights and freedoms.
There are real problems, yeah. What is expedited removal? Because this executive order expanded how it could be used, but we need to know what it's used for. And it's very important to Customs and Border Patrol and very important to ICE. This is a key power that they are using right now and going to keep using to remove people quickly and without getting the courts involved. Because as soon as you get the courts involved, things
you're
grind to a halt.
you were on a list that is a mile long.
Mm-hmm.
So this was like a standing thing before. It's just we've expanded on how it works.
That's right. It actually came in back in the Clinton administration in 1996. And it's very specific around kind of ports of entry and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So what happens is if I'm coming to the United States and my plan is to either seek asylum or I've come and I'm just trying to sneak in.
Yeah.
And I'm apprehended by Border Patrol.
Hmm.
If I don't have proper documentation, if I don't have things that can, support my claim to asylum or whatever my strategy is, expedited removal can be used by Border Control at their discretion to circumvent the rest of the process and basically rubber stamp me for removal at the quickest possible date.
If you can't readily show that you have legitimate cause to go through the courts, they can just be like, "We're not wasting our time with you. Get out."
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And now it applies to non-citizens, of course,
Yeah.
who arrive at a U.S. port of entry without proper documentation or with fraudulent documents. And the stipulation is they have to be encountered within 100 miles of the U.S. border. And if they cannot prove they have been in the United States continuously for at least 14 days.
So that gives them some wiggle room for if it doesn't get caught
Immediately.
right away. Like, oh, you used a fake passport, but we didn't notice till like a week later, we're going to get you.
Exactly. And it also kind of protects people if you came in 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You've started a life, maybe you have a job and stuff. You're undocumented, but
Like, you've established roots.
Yes. Then you do have the protections of due process. So this policy isn't unreasonable in itself.
No, like,
There's some red flags and stuff, and we'll cover that. But on its own, you might be thinking, well, this sounds quite reasonable, right?
at least the potential for reasonableness.
Yeah. So where we kind of get into trouble, though, is that it doesn't have a lot of checks and balances in itself, right? So the Customs and Border Patrol officer who first encounters you or who processes you, they will determine if the individual is inadmissible. Uh, and so, of course, you've got to follow immigration law. But if there's lack of valid documents or if they've misrepresented themselves, then the officer can issue that removal without the court hearing.
Oh, okay.
And usually that removal will go through within days or weeks. So it's very quick and you'd be in custody during that time. Now, if you are removed with that, you're actually barred from re-entering the United States for 5 years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a few built-in protections around asylum.
Hmm.
So if you are subject to expedited removal and you express a fear of persecution or torture in your home country, you must be referred to an asylum officer. They will screen you, and if they determine that they believe you, then you actually will move from the expedited removal process
To
straight
asylum.
into asylum. Yeah. However, the problems that people have around this system come from the fact that it does bypass due process pretty heavily, right? You never see a court, you never see a judge.
Yeah.
And also there's few people involved, right?
Yeah, you're at really the discretion of the Border Patrol services and
Maybe,
ICE.
yeah,
Maybe.
exactly. And maybe a asylum,
At most, you're
stringer.
looking at maybe 3 people involved in, like, using their professional discretion for any given case.
Yes. And so anytime you have that where you're really not seeing or talking to many people, there's that possibility of abuse that worries a lot of people. And going back to the executive order, right?
Yeah.
That strengthened and made it possible to use expedited removal more widespread, which is,
Okay.
yeah, which is concerning because the parts that they changed is it now can be used anywhere in the United States, which is a big one. And anyone who cannot prove that they have resided in the United States for at least 2 years
Oh, wow.
can be picked up. And the thing is, when you're undocumented, you might not have a lot of records. You might have been in the US for 5 years. You might have been in the US for 10 years. If you're
What do you have to prove that, especially, like, just on your person at any given time?
well, that's it. And
'Cause
it,
I imagine these folks, like, if you're getting picked up by ICE, they're not gonna let you go, like, rummage through your filing cabinet to find, like, a piece of mail from 5 years ago, like, you're kind of at the mercy of what are you physically carrying.
yeah, yeah. So, unless you've got that on you, and which who is going to have that, right?
No.
And if you're working under the table because people can't legally hire you,
Yeah.
then what are you even going to have? You're not going to have pay stubs, right? You have to hope you've got this 2 years of evidence just on you.
Yeah.
So it's a big change just with changing those two variables.
Yeah.
And it gives ICE kind of a startling amount of power. And just to give you an idea of how often this is used under normal circumstances
Yeah.
before this went through, it was used in about a quarter of encounters by Customs and Border Patrol in I think, 2024.
Oh,
So out of the 400 odd thousand, about 100,000 were removed using this process. Now that it's strengthened and with a much more aggressive push by the federal government, we could see this as a legitimate way of them bypassing immigration courts. And the immigration courts are swamped.
oh, I bet.
They are just absolutely, years backlogs. They could hire more judges and try and bolster this system, but it makes more sense if your whole goal is just to remove people as quickly as possible to get around it with this, to make sure they never get that
No.
due process.
Well, because if they get in front of a judge, the judge might, like, approve their claim and
Yeah,
yeah.
it happens a startling amount. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So this whole system deprives people of almost any basic legal protections. And we've seen now with ICE's rapid expansion, a lot of these guys, I think, leave a lot to be desired as law enforcement officers.
You don't always you don't really get the best and the brightest when you're on kind of a mass hiring spree, like, it
Yeah.
has a tendency to kinda drop your floor a bit.
And anyone who's now picked up using these rules is going straight to a detention facility. And as we'll get to a little bit later in this episode, the detention facilities are bursting. They are
Oh,
way
I bet.
overcrowded. So what you have now is this kind of disappearing act where ICE picks you up. You might talk to 2 or 3 people. They might unilaterally decide whether or not it's accurate that
You
you
qualify.
qualify for this expedited removal. Then you go to a detention center, God knows where. You're sleeping on the floor with a whole bunch of other people without any kind of legal recourse. And then you're deported, probably not to your country of origin, hopefully not to the uh, CCOT,
Yeah.
but maybe there.
Am I allowed to swear on, like
Yeah, Josh does
okay,
sometimes.
because that is so tremendously fucked up. The concept of it is terrifying.
Yeah, it is scary. It's really scary. And it's one of those ones. The reason why I wanted to cover it was because it slipped through in this barrage of the Republicans doing everything all at once. And just to digress a little bit, but that has been their tactic since day one, the Trump administration, which is do
Absolutely.
everything all at once because they can't fight you everywhere, right?
Yeah.
The Democrats have just been uh, caught completely flat-footed, and they still seem like they're flat-footed. It's wild how little resistance they've been able to put up against the Trump administration so far.
It's also scary in its own way.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like, just overwhelming all the systems, all the news cycle, and just the general population with too much at once for you to catch everything. So, surprisingly big things just slip by because, oh, something bigger or more overtly shocking
Mhm.
was able to dominate during that particular cycle. And then if you just do it enough times, the idea is, oh, people forget about that when the next news cycle
Yeah.
starts, and we've got the next wave of bullshit.
It's absolutely true, and every week, I feel like when I sit down with Josh to record this, I'm like, "Boy, I could have done like 5 or 6 episodes this week because so much is happening." And this week has been utterly insane. Be And last week before that was utterly insane, and it just the
I feel
feedback
like you
loop is
could say
incredible.
that about just about every week
Yeah,
since was it January 20th?
January 20th, yep, that was the day. So, you given me kind of a good segue here with the detention centers. Um, they are really, really over capacity. So if you yeah, say you get picked up on expedited removal, most, ICE centers are estimated, at 125% capacity. Now that was, Adam Isaacson of the, Washington Office on Latin America. It's a nonprofit immigrant advocacy group, and, he was talking to NPR, and he's saying what's happened is these facilities are filling up because they're arresting more people, but they don't actually have the infrastructure to deport more faster. They're
Right, they don't they figured out how to get more people off the streets step, but haven't built any efficiency into how to get people out of the country faster, so you've got this bottleneck at the
Mhm.
detention centers.
That's exactly it, and part of the issue is that it's kinda hard to find places to send people.
Well, and considering you mentioned, like, people aren't necessarily going back to their country of origin, like, oh, you get to be in a completely different foreign country.
Yeah, and those deportations, it's a two-way street. You have to have both countries' consent to deport people back to their home country, and that's not always the case. And, we'll talk about it in a second, but they're trying to send people to some scary places right now, and not just El Salvador.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, like, if most countries aren't looking to take in a bunch of people that have been pulled off the street by ICE, like, the countries that are going to agree to this mutually probably aren't run by the best people.
No, no, they are not. So where we are now is north of 48,000 people in detention, and that's up from about 39,000, in January before Trump took office. So it's a big jump, over 20%. And right now, there are facilities being constructed, a lot of them, on military bases.
Mm.
And yeah, if that makes you uneasy, it should. But that capacity is going to expand. That's something that they've had planned for a while. They're also looking at private prisons, expanding some of those.
I'm just the idea of, like, trying to very swiftly build infrastructure for containing people that you've decided that you want to collect up and get out of the country. Like, this is raising a lot of historical red flags for me.
Yeah.
This sounds familiar in a not good way.
It's been pointed out once or twice that there's some historical similarities here, and it's really telling that first we're working on the detention facilities, the
Yeah.
camps, right? And we still don't have a really good idea of where do you deport
Where does
like
everybody go?
12 plus million people, right? If they get everyone they want to get, which they probably won't. It's very difficult.
Huh. But even getting, like, a tenth of that is
It's huge.
over 1,000,000
Yep.
people, and that that's a big deal. That's a lot of people to move, and that's a lot of people to resettle in other countries. In resettlement is a very optimistic word to use, I
It
feel
is.
like.
That's such a nice way to put it.
I know.
Okay, let's talk about the actual deportation numbers.
Mm.
They're very hard to come by, and we kind of have to go on what the administration is telling us, which a lot of people are saying is probably not actually factual.
What? This administration, like, stretch the truth and
No.
not be completely, honest?
Try to pick your jaw off the floor.
I
But
I am shocked.
yeah. So as of April, they claim to have deported 139,000 people.
So that puts them a little over 1% of that goal of
Yeah.
12,000,000.
And that actually is about on par where the Biden administration was for the same time last fiscal year. So they go on fiscal years for these for reasons I can't tell.
Let's track how many people we're sending out of the country over the fiscal year. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta use some time frame, I guess.
Yeah.
So this is like so for the same like quarter of 2024.
Mhm.
I'm struggling to wrap my brain around like this is the same amount. Is this the same amount of like actual time, but like
So basically, sorry, what I'm saying with it, and it may not have been
okay.
super clear, is they're not on track really to deport any more people than the Biden administration was to actually remove
So
them
like
from the country.
they're like actually the
Their
rate of deportation, if you
yeah
will,
hasn't
is
increased markedly.
despite the fact that they are like going on this hiring spree and like setting up all this infrastructure for where to store people.
Yeah.
So it if that's the case, it sounds like they're just gonna round up a bunch of people, but nobody's actually gonna be like there won't be any more people leaving than there necessarily would have been under a different administration, let's say.
Yeah. That's kind of it. Now,
Hmm.
recently, Time Magazine got updated figures from the government where they estimated 207,000 now deported. So, just to give you context, in 2024, and again, that fiscal year ends September 30th for them,
Okay.
the Biden administration had deported 271,484 people. We're in June now, and this is a very recent report. So, yeah, they might beat the figure slightly,
Maybe.
maybe?
Maybe there's some big sweeping plans to increase the deportation efficiency and it's just gonna go exponential on us.
Well, man, you are teeing me up. So,
It's what I do.
very recently, this is reporting from Vox on June 9th. The administration is going to the Supreme Court to try to neutralize the Convention Against Torture.
I'm sorry, what?
I know it sounds very dramatic.
Yeah, no, this like a lot of things we've talked about have sounded bad.
Ye-
This might be the worst, and that's saying something. So please explain.
So, just to give you some background, the rules are the laws, I should say. So,
It's a s-
the United States shall not expel, extradite, or otherwise affect the involuntary return of any person to a country in which there are substantial grounds for believing the person would be in danger of being subject to torture. So that is the Convention Against Torture. Basically, if you can't assure a person that you're deporting that they're not going to go back into a dungeon wherever you're sending them, you can't send them there. Very reasonable.
So this sounds like a real basis for protecting asylum claimants.
Yes, that's exactly what it's for.
So overturning it seems like a way to try and, kick out a bunch of asylum claimants.
Oh, I think you've got the thread.
Sometimes I'm smart.
What they're trying to do is not necessarily get rid of the law on the books, but they're trying to
Tweak it.
get around it.
That's so much better.
So the way it should work, the way it usually works, is the judge who hears the case, uh, the deportation case, that hearing that they hold determines not only whether an individual may be removed from the U.S., but also where they may be removed. So that's all usually done in that one thing. If I sneak down and they catch me and
Catch you at the border.
yeah, they would have very little trouble deporting me to Canada because there's very little chance of me coming back here and being tortured. But if you're from someplace like, Libya, for example, or Iran, or a country with a really bad human rights record, that could come into it. But what the U.S. wants to do is argue that they can receive assurances from nations that anyone that is sent won't be tortured. And then their loophole then is that if they have this assurance, they don't have to worry about them being tortured. And after the hearing, after they get their due process, the person being removed, they can then swap out the country that the judge would have, sent them to, for this alternative safe country.
Like the substitutions with like your Instacart order, like, oh, we're out of bananas, so we sent you onions because they're basically the same thing. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot like that, honestly. And so some of the nations that they're thinking of deporting people to,
Mm.
there's questions like Sudan, for example, a country that you will recently know from the news, devastated by civil war.
Hmm.
But they would like to deport people there. And they want to get this assurance and they want to get this loophole. So then they can start loading the planes and and going. And it's all part of this idea that they're running up against reality. And the reality is they can only hold so many people, they can only deport so
Yeah.
many people. So they have to very quickly get everything in order and ramp this up. So by doing this, if they can get the Supreme Court to say, yeah, that's cool, then they have a much clearer runway for where and how they can send people out of the country. We know that they're building more detention centers. So that is a problem that will eventually start to level out as these centers come online. But they still have an issue that ICE cannot, with even with their hiring spree, do what the administration wants, which is like 3,000 arrests, I believe, a day or a week. It's yeah, they're very ambitious. So what needs to happen for the president to actually get his wish and deport however many millions of people it ends up being? Well, you basically need an army, right? You would need a domestic army to collect people, to hunt them down.
I don't like where this one's going either. Why does history keep rhyming in terrible ways, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It does this, and I wish it wouldn't.
I think a lot of us do.
Yeah. So right now, ICE has a big budget. It's 33 billion.
That's a terrifying amount of
Yeah.
money.
And I shouldn't say just ICE, but Customs and Border Protection,
Okay.
which ICE is a part of. So Customs and Border Protection right now has a budget roughly equivalent to the military budget of Australia. And I think with these kind of numbers, with once you start getting into like the really big numbers, it all gets very abstract.
Anything that's really, really, really big or really, really, really small loses a certain amount of meaning, especially to the average person.
Yeah, and I don't want people to get kind of glazed over here. So I'm going to keep comparing it to military budgets because that's something very tangible, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe more so than just throwing numbers at you. Now, you've heard of the big beautiful bill. We've all heard of the big beautiful bill. Yes, it's big, it's beautiful, it won't shut up.
Like,
Uh,
shut up.
what makes it unique, other than the fact that it's over 1,000 pages, which is insane, is that it basically is the president's whole agenda just stuffed into one overly fat, overly big package.
I feel like part of that is, like, getting bills passed into law, like, it's a finicky process that takes time. If you try to do it for every single thing you wanna do, like, that's gonna take forever. We put it in one big thing that everyone just wants to, like, TLDR, like,
Yeah, it's
just
a shame how many Republican congresspeople have TLDR'd it and then come out and been like, "Well, I didn't know that was in the bill." Read it. You're a lawmaker.
like, isn't this is, like, what you're actually paid for is to sit and read the thousand-page thing.
Yes, that is correct.
I feel like the bare minimum that the American people can ask of you is to do your job, and yet I would still be disappointed.
Yeah, they've got a lot of luncheons, a lot of lobbyists to talk to.
I gotta know palms to grease and be greased, you
Yeah,
know.
that tea time's not gonna tea itself. It's tough. It's tough work being a congressman. All right, the big beautiful bill. One of its many, many, many spending things is 168 billion for immigration and border enforcement. That is a five-fold increase in funding over the current year, which again is around 33 billion. Just to tie this back to military spending, because ICE is fairly militarized, and Customs and Border Patrol is already uh, hugely over budgeted compared to other domestic law enforcement agencies. But $168 billion would move CBP, Customs and Border Protection, into third place in the world as far as military spending goes. So you would have the United States,
Like, the US actual
yeah,
military,
which is scratching $1 trillion.
which is also a terrifying amount of money.
Insane. The next is China that spends, I think, around 340 billion. Then you would have Customs and Border Patrol. Utterly wild.
So, what crossed my mind when you said that number,
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember what, like, the approximate population of the US is.
About 340 million, give or take.
Okay. So, like, now I'm doing this as pure mental math here, but that's like $500 per person?
See, this is why I'm excited to have you on, because you can do math where
This
I
it's my strong suit in the pairing here.
yeah, I went to university for political science. Can you tell?
But, like, and that's not just, like, per taxpayer, like, that's every person in America.
Yes.
$500.
Do you remember all those Doge cuts? This is, I believe, more than all of the money that they cut by decimating the federal civil service.
I absolutely believe that, 'cause why use that $500 per person to, like, do good by those people and other people who could use good things when, we can round up people and, put them in detention centers? Why big air quotes here.
What makes this even more egregious is that in like this year,
Mm.
2025, before any of this wild 168 billion comes in, the money allocated to immigration and border enforcement agencies is 36 times more than what is provided for tax or financial crimes enforcement and the IRS, 21 times more funding than for firearms enforcement, 13 times more than drug enforcement, and 8 times more than the FBI budget and, everything that the FBI covers.
Because this particular thing, 8 times more important than the FBI.
Yes.
I mean, of course, we can't put money into tax crimes.
No, you might actually catch some of them then.
Yeah. We might make money.
So it's already devoured the rest of criminal law enforcement in the United States before they're going to up its budget by 5 times.
So we are now 35 times the FBI's budget?
Oh my God. Is that how that works? Yeah, I suppose so.
Did you say 7 or 8 times?
I believe it was 8.
Okay, no, then 40. 40 times.
Dear Lord.
Yeah. And this is assuming the FBI's budget isn't being cut as part of this,
Mhm.
this whole thing. Where's the money coming from?
I'm so glad you asked.
Oh,
This is like T-ball tonight. You're just teeing me up like crazy. So
that's how we go.
the Congressional Budget Office, they are the group that looks at bills and says, hey, this is going to cost this much. They have released an estimate that the current big, beautiful bill would add 2.4 trillion to the deficit spread out over 10 years. Now, that might not even be all of it.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So just for anyone who's morbidly curious,
Oh, you know I am.
the current US debt is 36 trillion 217 billion 452 million 314,000, and it just keeps ticking up as I watch the debt clock. But and by the time you listen to this, add some more money onto that. The debt to GDP ratio is well over 100%. It's getting very close to 150%. This is a lot of money for this project. And while it is enough money to build and furnish a domestic army to go out and grab however many million people off the streets,
We're definitely doing terrible things that justify this, I'm sure.
yeah, okay. Small digression just because you baited me into it. If people think that, they've been saying, "Oh, we're gonna get the worst of the worst, the criminals, the bad guys." Here's the thing. ICE right now is going after the low-hanging fruit. They've just started.
Well, they're like, you're just trying to get your
They're
numbers.
trying to get anyone, yeah. And do you think the hardened criminals are hanging out in a Home Depot parking lot? Do you think hardened criminals are going to elementary schools?
I mean, those 5-year-olds, man, they'll cut you.
Seriously. It's terrible because the ones that they're getting are the ones that shouldn't be gotten. And the hardened criminals, are you telling me that those guys don't know how to lay low? Telling me that ICE is getting any of those guys? I don't think so.
Those are the people with, like, the resources to,
Mhm.
like, avoid detection. The people who are just, trying to live their lives.
Exactly. It's utterly insane to me. But trying to get back on topic here, uh, you asked a very poignant question. How are we paying for this?
Yeah.
Well, the first answer is debt. They're just taking on tons more debt.
And to max out those credit cards.
The other way
YOLO.
is by changing the way immigration works in the United States. They're basically going to nickel and dime immigrants, bringing in immigration fees, asylum fees, which is maybe the one of the more heinous, I don't even know if it's one of the more heinous things we've talked about today.
I don't wanna create that rank list, like, it's just sad.
But for example, the asylum fee would impose $1,000 fees on people applying for asylum. Can you imagine
Like,
walking maybe from Venezuela up the Darien Gap through very dangerous, places that are patrolled by criminals who will shake you down, right? You get all the way up through Mexico. You get to the United States, and there's a guy with, like, a little tap machine asking
yeah,
you to tap your credit card for $1,000.
that thing has a tip prompt too.
My god. And you gotta do it too, because otherwise you're getting right on
Oh,
the
yeah.
expedited
Well, 'cause
removal
it's at
list.
his discretion,
Oh god.
so
That's too dystopian for me. I can't. No, I can't. Alright. Yeah. So that's not it. There's a parole fee, $1,000. So parole, think of it as sort of like prison parole. It's you're waiting for immigration hearings, that kind of thing, and you're released into the wilds of the United States.
you're allowed to be in America, but, like,
Yeah, but we're watching.
watching you.
Yeah. That's another $1,000. So now that's $2,000. There's employment authorization document fees, uh, for if you dare to work in this new country that you've come to, of $550. This is, and it could go on. I honestly we don't have time to go through all of these new fees that they're trying to bring in to hit, some of the poorest and most vulnerable people in the world with. So that's fun. Before we end tonight, I wanna hit this from one other angle, and it's
How much more sad can we get?
there's hidden costs to this as well. We just talked about this huge debt accumulation, right? And I'm sure they'll make it all back through charging people with no money. But
That'll definitely work.
yeah, let's talk about the economic benefit of undocumented workers, because the American economy deeply, deeply depends on the undocumented. It's been said for years that there are just jobs that there aren't enough Americans to do, you can't get Americans to do, and they won't pay Americans, the minimum wage to do it.
Which is saying something given how low the American minimum wage is in a lot of states.
Mhm. Yeah, very, very low. Uh,
America runs on exploitation.
I mean, capitalism, baby.
Oh, yeah.
This is numbers from 2022, but it's not too far off the
Yeah.
tee. At that point, there was an estimated 10.9 million undocumented immigrants, and it did bump up quite a bit in the Biden years, right? So,
I'm just refresh my memory again.
mhm.
What is the target number Trump has for deportations again?
It depends on who you ask.
Oh,
St
gotta love a shifting goalpost.
Yeah, Stephen Miller, I believe, has said
Mm,
around yeah, like, you're fine to shiver at his mere name. I believe has said somewhere around 20 million. I've heard 12 a lot. I've heard 13. So it really depends on which mouthpiece is mouthing.
okay. 'Cause, like, even I hesitate to call them more reasonable estimates that you just gave. Sounds like they're looking to deport all of the undocumented immigrants.
Yes. Yeah,
And
that's
then
correct.
some extra people just for funsies.
That's part of the scary thing about this is that we've already seen people who shouldn't have been deported be deported quickly and recklessly. And there's no guarantees that something that starts with one group doesn't expand to more, right? All throughout the campaigning for this last presidential election, it's we are going to mass deport, but somehow it's only going to be the worst of the worst, right?
Yeah, 'cause I can't wrap my head around any reality in which all the undocumented immigrants are the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
in the entire
Well,
country.
that's the whole point of this is that ICE is butting up against reality, and one of them has to give.
Yeah. So it's like, do you accept that, no, these are not the worst of the worst, or do you just try to make your quotas?
I think it's going to be the quotas. Really do, unfortunately. Yeah, let's talk about some of the benefits of this. So in 2022, the 10.9 million undocumented immigrants paid around 96.7 billion in taxes.
They actually paid their tax.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Undocumented people, because they're in a situation that's so perilous, very rarely step out of line or break the law because they can be ejected very quickly if they
For
do
little
so.
or no cause.
For little or no cause, yeah. So they actually tend to try and stay on the straight and narrow.
Maybe they're possibly good people.
Something that I'm sure will make a lot of people mad because it makes me mad is that as far as tax rates go, undocumented people actually pay, on average, a higher rate of tax than regular Americans do. As far as taxes go, undocumented immigrants pay a higher effective state and local tax rate, 10.1% effective tax rate, whereas the 1% highest income households in the United States paid an effective local tax rate of 7.2%. Now, immigrants are making much less money, so they are paying less taxes, but they are being taxed higher as a percentage than the great job creators of the 1%.
I feel like we need to up that tax crime budget that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Put 168 billion in that and see what shakes out.
Oh, more than the change in your couch cushions. That's infuriating.
Yeah. Undocumented immigrants made up about 5% of the total workforce in 2022, but played larger roles in key industries. 1 in 7 construction workers, 1 in 8 agricultural workers, and 1 in 14 hospital workers.
So imagine though those people are just gone.
They kind of thought about this, and I say that the American Immigration Council kind of ran the numbers and did estimates of, well, what would happen if you were to round up all undocumented people and somehow boot them out.
Why does this sound like it's the plan that's been
Well, okay, yes. Yeah,
but hypothetically speaking,
hypothetically speaking, you would shrink the United States economy by 1.1 to 1.7 trillion dollars, which again is so big it gets abstract, but
and
it's a bigger contraction than the Great Recession, like the 2008 financial crash.
oh damn.
Yeah.
And that's, if I'm trying to remember, more money than the entire US military budget.
Sure is.
Is
Yeah.
that in, and it might also be including this like border security shiny big bill budget that we talked about. Like
Oh, yeah.
the first and third largest military budgets in the world.
Yeah. This this isn't even measured in any of those things that we were talking about before, right? The costs,
Yeah.
what they're adding to the
This is
deficit,
just shrinking the economy.
shrinking your economy for seemingly not a lot of benefit.
My first thought with it honestly was about like, how does losing those people in those jobs in those fields, how does that impact the workload? Like,
Yeah, you need people, especially for agriculture, for construction, for healthcare. These are
major industries. And like they're ones that affect everybody. Also, like these are averaged, I'm sure, like on a national level, but I'm betting there are like specific cities or states that would be affected in a far greater capacity because maybe their ratios are skewed higher.
Yeah, you're 100% right. California,
Mm.
right? The biggest racial group in California are Latinos. And now, of course, most of them are just United States citizens, but a lot of undocumented people from South and Central America make their way to California. And that is a huge blow, right? Like you say,
Yeah.
specifically to that economy. And also, one thing to keep in mind, there's a lot of mixed families between undocumented and documented, right?
Oh,
People
yeah.
fall in love strangely without checking each other's documents. And
What a
so
crazy mixed up world.
you will have, if this goes on, just to add a little bit more horror before we wrap things up, you are going to have people's families ripped apart. You are going to have undocumented fathers taken away from their wives and kids. You will
Sent
have
to Sudan.
maybe sent to Sudan, where we pinky swear they won't be tortured.
Promise.
And the number of mixed households is in the millions.
Oh, I
It's not a
absolutely
small
believe
amount.
it.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
especially if someone, like, has been like, they're undocumented, but they've been established in the States for a while.
exactly. Yeah, you could have a lot of family.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that was a downer. Do we have anything fun to say before we end this episode?
I feel like this is just not this is like, it's an important topic, but it is not a fun topic.
It is not. It is not. Well, I think that is where we will leave it. And thanks so much for listening. Dee, thanks so much for joining me tonight.
I need a palate cleanser or something.
Yeah, we'll watch something fun after this. All right, folks, we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice, and tell all your friends. The Politics of New America is hosted by Nathan Stone and produced by Josh Carmody. You can follow us on Blue Sky at Politics New America.